everyone. Welcome back to another episode of TIDES. I'm your host, Shveta Malhan, managing partner and co founder of Yenza 3, where we guide HR and business leaders through AI driven transformation so that they can adapt, adopt, and thrive. Today, we've got a fantastic guest, Rich King Gawlas, AI advocate, marketing maestro, and all around innovation champion. He's here to talk about something I know many of us are itching to learn more about, using AI to do the work for us. Now, we've all heard about chatbots and automation tools, but what does it really mean to have AI sit alongside your team? How does it feel when you can delegate tasks to AI, be that day to day content creation or even entire marketing workflows? And maybe most importantly, how do we keep that human element alive when letting AI do some of the heavy lifting? I can't wait to dive into all of this. So, if you're ready for a crash course on blending AI into your marketing and sales processes without losing your own creative spark, let's get started and learn more. Rich, welcome to Tides.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Rich, let's get started with a little bit of your backstory. How did you first start experimenting with AI in the marketing space?
Great question. So I've been a career marketer for about 15 years, working predominantly on the content side. So creating a lot of blog content, social media, ad campaign writing, you name it. And several years ago, before ChatGPT exploded on the scene, I was doing a lot of freelance work for myself and performing a lot of copywriting tasks for a number of clients. And I came across a tool called Jasper, and they touted this ability to use AI to create content at scale. I was certainly very apprehensive and didn't believe that it could actually do that for me. But I'd certainly reached a level that I had more work than I could conceivably do myself in as much time. And I wanted to find ways to optimize my own workflow. So I signed up for Jasper on a trial basis to give it a try. And once I decided to test it out for myself, the thing that blew me away was that I could create content at scale as it promised. And the biggest example here was I was writing 2,000 word, 2,500 word blogs, which typically would take me about 8 hours at minimum to create. That's research, writing the first draft, editing to sort of a first draft that I could present to a client, 8 hours. And I was able to create the same output in less than 30 minutes using Jasper. And it was good quality. It was incredible. The quality itself was jaw dropping. And my first instinct was that this was going to take my job away from me. And I sat there with my hands, with my face in my hands. But the next thought was that it won't take my job unless I know how to use this tool meaningfully. And I made it my mission to learn how to use AI to optimize my work ever since.
What a journey. When you were hands-on, and now, Jasper has been around for some time, and I'm sure you've been experimenting and exploring AI for some time now. And off late, we've started to kind of bucket AI into categories, and two different categories are emerging, where some people use the term AI as a co-worker, and others use the term AI as a co-pilot, where co-pilot is how we augment our capabilities, the example that you were giving earlier, and co-worker is where potentially it can take over pieces of work. So how do you define these terms, and why clarity around these two is important?
Yeah, great question. So the way I typically look at these is we'll take Copilot for the first example here. So look at Copilots as your personal assistant. I find that this is one of those tools that you can use on a one-to-one conversation basis. You're having a back and forth, and it's sitting there sort of riding shotgun with all of your processes. You're using it as a personal assistant in your day-to-day work. AI coworkers, or maybe even AI agents, because I'm starting to lump those two in the same category here, can definitely be personal assistants. However, they're really a tool that you delegate work to. And there's a little bit of collaboration here, but think of AI agents and coworkers as a team member on your direct team that can help complete an entire process for you. So you give them everything that they need in order to complete something. They go off, they come back to you with a finished work product that you can evaluate, provide feedback on, and potentially use.
I want us to double down on the co-worker element, because co-pilot, yes, we've had 2+ years under our belt experimenting with, Chat GPT and other tools like Jasper.ai to see how it can help us augment our current capabilities and do the work. But could you share more specific examples of AI stepping in as a co-worker for a marketing agency you've worked with, and what task did it take over and how did the team react? Because it's taking there's a lot of fear associated with AI right now, especially with AI agents, where pieces of your work are being done by AI. So I would love for you to share some more details.
Absolutely. And I think some of the best examples here can be given with the work I'm doing with an agency called DivvyUp. So DivvyUp is one of the first, if not the first, AI operations agency. And so what we're doing is we're helping marketers around the world be able to AIify their processes and create genuinely jaw-dropping work product through AI agents or coworkers in this instance. So what we're doing is we're using AI agents and building a number of these coworkers to work together in order to complete specific tasks. So, as an example, one of them is to write copy. And I know a lot of people have already used copilots and AI assistants for copywriting. You can use it for things like ad copy, email newsletters. You can use it to create social media posts, content calendars, video scripts, whatever you need. But it's the linking of AI assistants like that to each other and into other workflows using tools like make.com or Zapier in order to start chaining them together is where you start to build this power of an AI coworker that can take an entire process from start to finish. And another example of some of the work that we're doing is we're creating things like lead researchers. So being able to create an AI process for conducting your prospecting and client research, whether that's building customer personas, putting together a report based on scraped data from their company websites or their LinkedIn profiles, or even their social media footprint and the content that they're publishing, scraping all that data and then putting it into a report that you can use actionably. That's some of the incredible work that we're doing.
And how do you go about identifying these use cases where you can use AI to either augment or, totally take over or automate parts of an existing workflow?
One of the best things about where we are right now, with AI, is that you can choose to either use as much or as little AI as you'd like. So we have some options here. It's not a 1 or a 0. You could, in theory, take AI and have it do everything for you. And that's the use of AI coworkers, AI agents, and chaining them together through automation to take a process from front to back all the way using AI. Or you can use AI incrementally in various steps of the work that you're doing. So the first step that I usually take when I think about adding AI into some of my processes is to think about the simple things that you're doing on a daily basis. Think about the repetitive tasks, those menial tasks that take up time. They're simple, but you know that you're doing them on repeat. And ask yourself, how, if at all, can AI potentially help you? And it's a common question I get asked, what other use cases can we find for AI? And I think the exciting thing is here that we can still discover new use cases as new models become available, because we've just started scratching the surface of this. So I think it just boils down to going back to the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. Think very critically about that, pause, and ask yourself how AI can be integrated into this step.
And when you're working with your clients, do they typically come to you with, like full understanding of what parts of their processes they want to automate or embed AI into? Or is it like a collaborative conversation where you guide them through making those choices and decisions?
Yeah, it varies, I'll say. And it's exciting because what a lot of clients come to me with at the beginning isn't always what we end up working on in the long term. Through an iterative process of discovery and asking questions and really boiling down what the issues that they're trying to solve for are, we discover where we can make big impact decisions with AI, either right from the beginning or over the next quarter. And that's the exciting part, because I think that clients, and I think this has been the history of marketing clients from the dawn of time, will often think their problem is A, but sometimes it's B, or sometimes it's D or X. And you discover that through just working with them regularly. And I've been excited to see their faces light up when we find new ways to solve new problems for them and drill down into really solving their issues.
Yeah, absolutely. This time around, though, Rich, I feel like the implementation or the support that we're giving to our clients is different than past digital transformation efforts. Because if you implement, let's say, Salesforce.com, you don't, every change humans resist. It's in our nature. But I would say that the resistance in that scenario is lesser compared to the resistance in today's scenario, because the impact of introducing technology is much more significant and job tasks are at at stake. People are fearing that they might lose their job. So, in your client conversations, how do people who are actually in the workflow doing those pieces of work, which are either augmented or automated by AI, reacting to this? Are they excited or are there concerns? Do you have to diffuse a lot of resistance in the process for the impacted stakeholders?
Yes, there's definitely the emotions definitely run the gamut, I will say. There is a lot of confusion sometimes about how tangibly AI can solve a problem. I think there's a lot of talk about having to have some sort of AI presence within your workforce. And I think there's a lot of excitement around that. And I think that that excitement should continue. However, when you think about the tactical work that you're doing, there's pause there. So there's confusion and that needs to be untangled there. So where are we implementing AI? How? To what degree? What is it actually accomplishing? So there's just a lot of conversation there. So we need to think a little bit about that. And then, of course, there is the usual apprehension and concern that by implementing these AI tools, it could theoretically take over my job. And I think there's no other way to slice it that, yes, it is going to impact work in some way. And I think we're seeing some of that right now. However, the net benefit of implementing AI is that you can strengthen your workforce and strengthen yourself as an employee as well with being able to work better, faster, with higher quality outputs. So I think there's a lot to get excited about. And again, I mentioned that excitement continues. And I think even in those apprehensive feelings, excitement continues to be the thread, because even though we're not entirely sure what's going to happen in the future, I think there's still this air of curiosity and excitement around where AI can take us. So, but yes, I've had a number of different emotions to square with. And I think that that's normal. And I think we should all take a moment to give it some space and process what this potentially means, because we are redefining how we work, quite literally.
Absolutely. And in your lived experiences around integrating AI into work context, who are the typical stakeholders beyond your marketing stakeholders that you bring into those conversations? I'm just curious to know, because we talked about how work is fundamentally changing and is going to impact how we show up and how we do our work. Is HR ever involved, or somebody who's taking care of redefining job roles? Are they in the conversation, in the mix as well?
Absolutely. Actually, some of the more recent conversations that I've been having have been with HR teams. What surprised me is that a lot of operations teams I've been discussing sort of AI implementation with. When I first set out to do any consulting on my own, I've was targeting exclusively marketers because that's where I have the most domain expertise and subject matter expertise to share. But as I've started to dive into this in my own conversations, it's been really interesting to discover that many people on the operations side are very keen to learn how AI can build better gears for how their companies work. So that's been really, really exciting foray into it. I've worked with a lot of information technology and infosec people as well, for obvious reasons, making sure that AI is implemented ethically, responsibly, in a way that's not going to compromise the integrity of organizations and the data that they work with every single day and protect. And then, yes, certainly on the HR side, being able to really understand how to make the most of the workforce that you have, be able to potentially support your team in the best ways possible, especially as we're transitioning through these different ways of working.
Tied to this conversation before we move ahead is I wanted to circle back on the co-pilot implementation of AI, where AI is augmenting us. And the examples that we talked about was maybe creative brainstorming or data analysis and things like that. What new skills do people who are in the marketing domain have to acquire to play with AI in that augmented capacity? Is it a skill thing that you're noticing, or is it a mindset shift that people have to fully utilize the power of AI?
Absolutely a mindset shift. So, in learning this through a course by Rachel Woods, who's the founder of DivvyUp, as well as the AI Exchange, the way she coins this is that we are going through an area where we need to shift our mindset into being AI first. And I love the way that's phrased, because it truly challenges us to take a look at what we're doing every single day and ask ourselves how we can approach that from an AI first mentality. What can AI help us with in accomplishing these tasks? The example that I love that was phrased to me was that in traditional SaaS models previously, even like Salesforce, for example, we were challenged to memorize specific workflows and features. And that's how we were able to use that tool. With AI, it's much more about learning how to communicate effectively, how to delegate work, and be able to provide feedback which for me in particular, this is an exciting field because I think soft skills will continue to be the next big domain for people who want to use AI effectively. You need to know how to communicate effectively, to be able to communicate your ideas, to be able to provide feedback to a team member, and in this instance, an AI co-pilot, to be able to delegate work and give up some of the work that you're doing. So you have to think critically about what you'd love to get off of your plate and give to someone else. And delegation isn't always easy for all of us. And then another thing that was also a really great topic of conversation is that empathy, I think, continues to also be something we need to practice when it comes to AI. In the learnings through the AI exchange, AI is generic by design. So if you were to just start using ChatGPT or Claude or any other AI model right now, it's built at a baseline to be exceptionally generic because it's been trained on the entirety of the internet. So it knows nothing about you until you start interacting with it. And because of that, it's also going to get things wrong. So we need to practice some grace. So the idea that you then infuse your domain expertise, your subject matter expertise, what does success look like? You start training your AI co-pilot into learning what you need. And that's how you start to sharpen it into a very powerful tool for you and your team. So there's a number of skills there, but soft skills are at the forefront of it, which is really exciting.
That's beautiful, because in a way, like, you compare it to the previous SaaS models, which is so right. Like, we were taught how to click a button here and so result will happen. But here in this case, artificial intelligence is called intelligence for a reason. We are actually trying to play with an intelligence that could be a grade 7 level intelligence or PhD level intelligence, but treating it as an intelligence will get us much farther versus just treating it like a tool. Because otherwise we'll end up using, I'm going to use Chat GPT as an example, any Gen AI tool, we'll end up using it as a Google search versus actually truly leveraging the power it has to bring to us. I also really like the point you made about the more we use the tool, the more it gets to know us. So it becomes a better co-pilot for us in many ways because it knows where we are coming from, what is our style of engagement, how we like to probe, how we like to diagnose, how we like to research, however we are trying to use the AI capability.
Exactly. And just to drill into the Google search analogy, because I remember explaining this to someone that they were upset because the results they were getting through a ChatGPT search were poor, that they weren't getting anything better than they would through Google. And I had to go back and explain to them that the way it works is that, again, Google searches will surface the most relevant links and results based on the keywords that you've used. And it's accessing the entirety of the internet in order to do that. And ChatGPT and Perplexity and other tools, not that they don't access the internet in real time. However, what they're built on or how they've been trained is that they are meant to be predictive engines. So whatever words you've used, it's not so much about finding the most relevant words associated with those words, but it's finding what makes the most sense next in that sentence. So just as a hypothetical, if you were to type in "the sky is" into ChatGPT, one of the answers it may provide you is blue. Or what goes up, the answer might be what must come down. It's using natural language as its training model in order to provide you the answer, not just a strict keyword algorithm to surface answers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious because a, there's a lot of conversation around what AI is capable of and how it can introduce efficiency and increase productivity in the work context. In your lived experiences, like you've mentioned, AI can be used for anywhere from content generation to lead scoring. What kind of metrics or KPIs do you track to measure success, and how quickly can teams see tangible ROI? Because that's one of the big things that every organization is interested in, not just implementation, but seeing the outcomes or impact of that implementation or integration.
Absolutely. So one of the things, so it's interesting because I think we're in this era where I think we can define some brand new KPIs for how we're going to measure success when it comes to AI in particular. So one of the top ones is time saved. And I think it challenges us to think about all of the work that we're doing right now and looking at how long it's taking us from start to finish to complete each one of these tasks or projects. And then as you start to implement AI tooling, start measuring whether or not that's saving you time, because AI has the potential to unlock something like up to 500 hours each year if you're using it efficiently, because between your typical distractions at work, which could be 10 to 15 minutes each, things like context shifting, so being able to get back into focus flow and continue the work that you're doing, that takes time as well. There's an opportunity cost potentially here that could be lost and needs to be measured as well. So if you are spending a lot of time doing the repetitive menial tasks, that's taking away from your ability to reinvest time into strategic initiatives or doing something a lot more productive. So those opportunity costs are another thing you could potentially be measuring. And then lastly, just AI has the potential for exponential output. So if it takes you, just as an example, it takes you 30 minutes to build a proposal presentation, what would that look like if you can build 2 of them in the same time or 10 of them in the same time because of AI? So it's those things that you could potentially find those new KPIs to start measuring, because I'm not sure anyone's measuring it maybe in the traditional sense. I think we need to look at it through a different lens and look at it as a time savings and a sort of quality output multiplier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is very interesting point that you make, because it also, wearing my HR hat, tells me that how we measure people's performance is going to, or how we enable and support employee performance is also going to evolve, or has to evolve, because if we are becoming more outcome based organization, then how we measure our people's performance, how we reward, recognize performance also has to look and feel different. I'm just tying it back to impacts on people and how the entire support system that's built around enabling workforce also needs to be looked at differently if we are measuring
Yeah.
the results differently.
If there is, and as you mentioned that, so one thing does come to mind also for me, if you want to measure something through maybe a traditional lens when it comes to your HR workforce, I know learning and development initiatives are usually important for companies to impart to their teams, and they're looking for their teams to work at an optimal level. So that's why you're offering these initiatives. But so from my perspective, adoption and usage of AI tools is something we could be tracking right now too. So if you've purchased an enterprise level license to ChatGPT, for example, you could potentially track whether people are using this, being able to gauge their outputs and see if people are making the most of these brilliant new tools that can help them supercharge their work. And I say that because I have noticed that some teams do struggle to adopt AI tools at scale. The adoption and usage varies. There are power users, and there will always be power users, but there are some people who are struggling with this concept that AI could help them work better. And so one thing that I've been thinking about when it comes to the future of AI, or sort of the big winners, as we can take a look at who is going to come out on top. The big winners in AI, especially in the next year, aren't necessarily going to be the ones that build the best tools, but it's going to be the companies that can successfully and confidently train teams of people to use the tools, because the adoption piece in particular, I've noticed there's a big gap there.
Yep, yep. Very, very good point that you make about adoption, because I mean, even if it doesn't give you the full picture, if a company is going out and doing an enterprise rollout of a system, for example, we'll take ChatGPT as an example, or Perplexity, pick any tool.
Yeah.
If we are tracking adoption, at least it gives us a quick indication or on which parts of your company are using that particular tool highly or not so much. And that gives you a starting point for further investigation. If some pockets of your company are using, let's say, Perplexity every day, multiple times, spending hours on it, you can then go and have a conversation or an observation to see what are they using it for, how are they using it. And if other pockets of organization are not doing that great in terms of usage, you can do further diagnostic and investigation around that too. So it's such a powerful indicator to support the adoption needs of unique parts of your business, depending on where is the friction point and barrier in your organization.
Exactly.
All right. So we can't talk about AI without addressing the ethics angle of this whole conversation. So, how do you ensure data privacy, reduce bias in AI output, and keep everything above board when AI is involved in the marketing process?
I can actually speak to just companies in general, because I think there's a few ways that we can look at this, and I can focus in on marketing as well. But just at a broad level, first and foremost, if you don't already have an AI policy in place, I think it's time to start having that conversation meaningfully with leadership. Include your security team, include the executives, just so that everyone is on the same page and understands how you'd like to use AI and where those protections need to be built. I think a policy needs to be built out for you and your team. So starting to draft some language around that. Many tools already, whether it's marketing tools like HubSpot or Salesforce or any other tool, they're using their own versions of AI now. They've rolled out features that include AI. So by and large, you could also be covered under those privacy settings or the privacy terms that are set out by those SaaS platforms that you're already using. So there's some protections there. The only thing maybe just to bear in mind is that if you are using a tool that has AI features, to just take a look into the settings and see whether those tools are using your data to train the models, because in most cases, they will not have built their own large language models. They are using something like ChatGPT, like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Claude under the hood in order to power those features. So again, some of that data may land back at those large language model companies to train. So just bear that in mind when it comes to the settings. But much like protecting the privacy of your clients or protecting proprietary trade secrets for your organization, make sure you're not sharing that within the chats that you're using. There's a way that you can have these chats and have AI be part of your workflow without divulging exceptionally sensitive data. So the first step is always to make sure that your settings are accurately set in order to make sure that things are not being trained on your data and that everything's in a closed loop when you're using it. Typically, when you're using a paid subscription of any one of these models, you can get those extra settings. The free models, I'm always wary of not to just throw data into. So be careful about that. And then if you really want to use AI in part of your workflows, consider potentially just blanking out sensitive data. So whether that's client names, company names, addresses, financial figures, you can use, if you're looking at from an analysis perspective, you can just dummy up numbers or use mock numbers in order to create similar analysis. And I think there's some powerful ways to do that just from a blanking out perspective. There's also, I think one of the realities is that we've opened the floodgates a little bit. So I am hearing that there is a lot of ChatGPT usage that potentially is using company data, unfortunately, because a lot of people may not be aware that that's how these models work.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I would always share with everyone is to be transparent about your AI usage with the people that you're working with. So if you're doing client work, say there's nothing wrong with you sharing with your client, I used AI to generate this report, brainstormed some ideas, creative ideas using AI for our next project together. So including AI as part of that conversation and just a transparent, used AI to help me with this, or I used AI to do this thing for me. I think that's exceptionally key because it lifts the veil so that people aren't left wondering if you used AI. And I think there's a lot of power in that too. And then of course, just being an advocate for AI within your team, becoming that champion and having these conversations transparently, not just with clients, but internally as well. How do you want to use AI and setting up the guardrails for yourselves?
Absolutely. So I have a question out of curiosity.
Yeah.
You talk about marketing team is using AI to do their work. You're suggesting that they should not hesitate sharing that they've used AI to generate the output, even with clients. Do you see that clients will push back and say, hey, now what's in it for me? What's the benefit for me? How are you changing your pricing models to factor in the efficiency gains that you're getting using AI to do your work?
Great question. And I'll say that I think if we were maybe sharing this very openly this time last year, I imagine we'd be getting a lot of client pushback. But because it's 2025 and where we're at right now with AI, we're reaching a point where it's almost uncommon for you not to be using AI. Like, I think everyone's aware of its existence now. I think everyone knows that it's being used in one way or another at just about every organization. And so my sense certainly is that AI is a benefit, not a deterrent. AI doesn't need to be charged a premium or doesn't need to be discounted if you're using it. Just because it takes you now less time to produce the same quality output doesn't mean that the value of that output isn't still whatever you charged your client for. It just now means you can potentially export an exponential amounts of that same output and potentially be making more money. So I think there's a mind shift around that. It's not about paying for the time. It's about paying for the quality of the output.
Beautiful. Isn't it interesting how fast that shift has happened in the conversations? Because 2 years ago, that was the biggest concern. How are we going to have the conversations with the client and how are we going to evolve our pricing models? So thank you for sharing. This is very important for us all to know that AI is becoming more and more like an expectation. If you're not using AI, then people are going to be wondering why not. Because
Exactly.
AI has a potential to touch every aspect of business. There's no piece of work that I can think of, especially in the knowledge work domain, robotics is still emerging, that cannot be augmented, supported, or evolved with the use of AI today.
Yeah. And I'll say, if you'd like, I could give an example actually, because I was asked this question directly as part of my freelance work. So when I was still doing much more content writing for myself, I remember a client had asked whether or not they should be paying the same amount of money because they knew that I was using some AI to create the work. And so in this instance, I let them know the benefit to you is that I created the same output, the same high quality output in less time now. So if anything, you should be paying me more because I was delivering it in much shorter succession than before. The second thing that I always sell to them now is that AI helped me make it better because I can use
Yeah.
AI to augment my work. I didn't just use AI to write the content. I
Yeah.
used AI to help research keywords. I used AI to do continued customer research into your audience to make sure that the right content that I'm writing is that much more powerful and is going to land the way you want to. So by all accounts, the amount of value now you're getting from the same output that I used AI to help generate is actually higher and should theoretically be charged a premium for because you're getting the benefit of all of those tools being used to create that piece of output. So again, it's not about the time invested that you're paying for, it's the quality of the work that's coming out at the end.
That's amazing. There's a guy who is very popular in the HR world. His name is Josh Bersin, and he's promoting this concept of a super worker. So what you highlighted is the future of worker is being a super worker, because there's going to be people who don't adopt and augment themselves with AI are going to be just regular workers. And then there are ones like what you highlighted, like yourself, who are super workers. And it's not just time efficiency, it's value, and it's the output quality that is also going to be very different. So
Yeah.
yeah, great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. My pleasure. And I remember going on the specific note about, right, the conversation about how 2 years ago this conversation has shifted so drastically. You're
Mhm.
so right, because I remember 2 years ago when I first started shouting from the rooftops about how exciting AI could be. I remember for the first time in my career ever this happening, I was getting pushback from a lot of people in my own networks, from my employers. I remember trying to be that champion at the early stages, and so many people looked down on AI. There was a lot of apprehension, fear. And so I felt like I was wrong. I felt like, well, if everyone
Mhm.
else isn't ready to have this conversation, then I must clearly be thinking about this the wrong way. But then fast forward to last year, I started consulting more meaningfully and started to land wonderful projects to work with these organizations to help them implement AI tooling, which was an exceptional adventure for me. And now fast forward to 2025, this is a full-time business now because I recognize there's so much value in this, and people are coming to us. People are coming to all of the AI operators that they know, and in my network to ask us for guidance on how to use this tool. It's been so wonderful because I don't think I've ever had such a shift in perception happen so quickly.
So true. Like the speed of change that we are witnessing today is totally unprecedented. You've acquired a lot of lived experiences using AI in your work life. I'm really curious to know, what were the biggest hurdles you faced when rolling out AI into work context of your clients, and how did you navigate those challenges?
Absolutely. One of the biggest hurdles that I've run into a few times now is not properly defining the problem that we're solving. And so, what I mean by solving for the problem is that, again, a lot of clients I think will come to us with what they believe to be a problem. Just as an example, I've been working on a specific automation with a client to help shorten the amount of time it takes for them to do their research. And in diving into this project and the amount of work we've done into building out this AI agentic workflow for them, the amount of inputs that need to be taken into account to get this research done is almost making the end result, this automation that we were creating, moot. It feels a little bit like it would have just been easier if the client would just go in and do the research themselves, anecdotally Google searching people or using LinkedIn as one of the lead sources. So there are these moments where after we finish implementing something, the net result didn't actually save us any time or didn't solve for the problem we thought we were solving for. So there's considerations that need to be made here. So again, trying to always define what success looks like, what does done look like, and what does the end product effectively do that's going to help us here. The second hurdle is that AI is still in its infancy. It's still really, really powerful. But over the last year, we've seen sort of the minimum viable product of AI, and we have only this far more to go. There's going to be more advances, and these advances continue to come at us at rapid speed. But because it's still so young, it does require a lot of human review, human intervention. We call it human in the loop. So just having a human be there to review outputs and guide AI instructions to ensure that we are getting the best possible outputs. that continues to be a hurdle because I think the expectation from a lot of clients at first is that this is a silver bullet, that it is magic. It's going to solve the problem with very little effort and with very little input from them. In order to get to a stage where AI is successfully completing full processes at your organization, it's going to require you to slow down so much to really
Mhm.
understand what it is you're doing at every step, analyzing why you're doing things at every step, and being able to train AI on exactly the answers to those questions, which is going to take longer than I think a lot of people anticipate. So there's an expectation management hurdle that needs to be accounted for. And then lastly, the training of teams. I had mentioned that the winner isn't going to be the best AI tool, but the best training on the AI tools. And I'm still seeing, again, a very huge knowledge gap in how people are using AI and to what degree, because there are degrees now. It's not just I'm using it or I'm not. And I'm finding that because of that gap, there's still much to be worked on and improved. So I'm very keen to focus on helping people train up and understand how to use AI to the best possible degree so that they can continue to be successful and continue their professional development and so that no one is left behind.
Yeah, yeah. And you make such an important point that this is the time for us to reimagine work, not just at the task level, but how do we create value? Like maybe that a process that existed in an organization, instead of us thinking about how do we make it better, maybe we can question the existence of that process also in the first place, depending on the context. And I'll give you an example, which I try,
Absolutely.
I think I've used it in every single podcast or many of them, but it is so relevant to us. Like you talked about AI agents. And the example I use specifically in marketing context is if tomorrow you and I are not shopping, but our agents are shopping on our behalf, what's the impact on the marketing department? It's no longer thinking about how do I make my existing process better. It's fundamentally thinking about I'm no longer marketing to humans alone. I'm marketing to maybe humans, but most likely machines that are working on that human's behalf. So, what's the value or the purpose of a marketing department? What do employees currently sitting in that marketing department do? How do they do their work differently? And how do you shape the marketing team of future, which is now mostly targeting to machines and not humans? So just a punchy brand line alone is not going to win you the business, is the example that I use.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if you were aware of this as well, but so there was a conversation that started last year, and I believe it's still ongoing because I don't personally know the solution to this yet. But ever since tools like Perplexity came on the market and ChatGPT now includes live internet search and deep research, those tools have fundamentally impacted search engine optimization because if you're no longer using Google regularly to search for content or search for answers for things, and you're now turning to ChatGPT and Perplexity, how do you optimize your online footprint, your online environment to be found by these completely new tools, new players on the market, because it's no longer just about what Google can surface for you, but it's how do you get your product or your answers that you want people to find surfaced by AI models. So it's an interesting influx right now that we're at.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's build on that. So, where do you see this going in the next year or two? I will not even project as far as five. Any upcoming trends or emerging tech that marketing and sales teams could or should start preparing for?
Yeah. So I agree with you that AI agents will continue to be a huge topic of conversation in 2025. Agentic workflows and automations. So again, that's the use of AI assistants that are all linked together to complete larger tasks. I think that's going to be a continued focus for individuals and organizations. We're seeing versions of that already where with ChatGPT and the highest paid level right now, I think the $200 a month level, you can use AI to have it be an operator for you and do your searching for you. You can have it go online and complete tasks for you. So I feel like those things are going to become a little bit more commoditized over the next year. You're going to see a lot more wide use and adoption of tools like that. So having agents do your work for you. The AI models are going to continue to get better over the next year, 2 years, 5 years. And I can't even accurately predict in what ways and when because things happen so quickly. The most recent example being that ChatGPT released its newest AI image generator, which if comparison to the other AI image generator, I remember not being very happy with the original version of it. But this new one that just dropped that is causing a lot of buzz around art, copyright, and how good it is because it can produce pieces of art and images based on just about any style in a moment's notice. It's these types of advancements that are going to continue to happen and surprise us and cause us to take a moment and think about what the future looks like. So I think we're in this really pivotal shift here. And then we're going to continue to see AI adoption just as a widespread phenomenon take hold more significantly. Again, I think last year, a lot of people were thinking about it. A lot of organizations were potentially planning for it. This year, they're implementing in some way. And by 2026, 2027, it'll be in a much more mass adopted phase. So I think we're at this tipping point within 2025.
Absolutely. So, not all organizations are at the same level of maturity or readiness or awareness around AI and how they've integrated AI into their ecosystem. Some are further ahead while others are just starting their journey. So as we wrap up our conversation today, for the listeners who want to dip their toes into AI, whether it's using AI as a coworker or a co-pilot, what's the first practical step that they can take tomorrow to start seeing value?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I would recommend to anyone is to think about your workflow. And so again, for every task you're about to accomplish, ask yourself how you could potentially get AI to either help you with it or do the task for you. And maybe start with just one task. There's no need to go through your entire process and figure everything out right now. But if you're just learning about it now, start with one simple thing. For example, if you are working in knowledge work and write a lot of emails, have it help edit and draft some of your emails for you. Have it be the guide for you in order to make your emails even better. And as you're doing that, continue to experiment and iterate, because prompting is going to be the big thing that you're going to need in order to be successful when using AI, even more so than the models. If you're really good at prompting and being able to communicate your needs and what success looks like and delegating your work, that's going to be the fundamental piece of it. So start with one prompt, continue to edit and iterate from there and see how you can make your prompt better to get even better outputs. And once you've mastered one specific task, then you can go to the next task and experiment with that and find ways to make that better or faster. And then once you've started to get that under your belt, you can certainly continue to add more processes, start thinking about automations, but it all starts with just that first step. So taking one task and becoming really, really good at that with AI as your assistant.
Wow, Rich, this has been beyond insightful. I love hearing the real world stories about AI shifting from just an extra gadget in the toolbox to an actual co pilot working alongside the team. So, you've definitely given us a much clearer roadmap for how to integrate AI responsibly while keeping that all important human touch in the mix. So, thank you for your insights and your time today.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Yeah, for sure. And to everyone who's tuned in, thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review and share it with your colleagues. We've got plenty more conversations coming on the future of work and evolving role of AI. So until next time, keep creating, keep innovating, and let's see how we can all harness AI in a smarter and more human way. Take care.